Welcome to Newsday on the BBC. I'm Sharon Jutlail in Singapore.
And I'm Alice Baxter in London. Here are the headlines. Oscar Pistorius is called selfish, reckless and a liar during a second day of cross-examination at his trial for murder. A plane searching for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 detects a possible new signal in the southern Indian Ocean.
And preparations are underway as Cyclone Ita makes its way to northern Australia. It's been upgraded to a maximum Category 5 storm. And a review of the flu medication Tamiflu says it works no better than paracetamol, and governments around the world may have wasted billions of dollars stockpiling it.
Well, it's midnight here in London.
And at 7 a.m. here in Singapore on Friday, the 11th of April, broadcasting to viewers around the world, you're watching Newsday. Welcome. The South African athlete Oscar Pistorius, who is standing trial for the murder of his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp, has faced tough questioning from the prosecution for a second day.
Well, he denied accusations by the prosecution that he bullied Reeva and that he was self-obsessed. Well, Mr. Pistorius denies intentionally killing the 29-year-old model. Andrew Harding reports on the day's events from Pretoria.
This was not a good day in court for Oscar Pistorius. His character and credibility coming under withering attack. First target, his selfish behaviour towards Reeva Steenkamp, as shown in text messages.
I had to go to training. I had to go to lunch.
Prosecutor Harry Nell suggesting that Pistorius, as usual not shown on camera in court, cared only about one person.
Your life is just about you. What's important to Oscar? Oscar shouldn't get into trouble. This shouldn't get into the media.
Then to the athlete's reckless attitude to guns and an incident at this restaurant when he fired a friend's pistol by mistake. The prosecutor said Pistorius must be lying when he suggested he hadn't actually pulled the trigger.
I must then accept that at your version the gun went off by itself. He gave you a gun, it went off by itself.
I don't recall how the firearm went off, my lady. I know that my finger was not on the trigger.
No tears in the witness box today. In fact, Pistorius became increasingly assertive, refusing to even look at the prosecutor and directing all his answers to the judge.
But Nell was making headway, suggesting a pattern of Pistorius ducking responsibility for his actions.
You see, again, Mr. Pistorius, it's the strangest day today. You just don't take responsibility for anything. You just don't do anything wrong. You are lying.
The same, he said, applied to the night Reeva Steenkamp died. Nell quizzing Pistorius on his exact movements in the bedroom.
Indeed.
I would have run out onto the balcony, my lady, and where I shouted for help, that fan would have been in the way. So it
Never happened.
So it must have been moved, my lady.
It never happened. You see, because, Mr. Pistorius, your version is a lie.
Pistorius strongly denied that. But alone on the stand, it's been a bruising day for him. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Pretoria.
Now, an Australian plane has picked up another signal in the last 24 hours that's believed to be from the black boxes of the missing Malaysian airliner. The plane was flying over the same area of the southern Indian Ocean where ships had previously detected pings. Malaysia's Defence and Acting Transport Minister Hishamuddin Hussein has been leading the investigation, and our correspondent Jonah Fisher spoke to him in Kuala Lumpur. He asked him whether he believed the pings being detected in the Indian Ocean are from the missing plane's black box.
We've formed the committees, international experts are on board, we've got panels of inquiries. All that will be revealed in time. And Malaysia has got nothing to hide.
You're the Malaysian Defence Minister as well as being the Acting Transport Minister, and to have an unidentified plane cross the Malaysian peninsula and not be challenged must be embarrassing for you in the least.
Well, if you scramble the Sukhois, even if you feel that that should have been the actions, or should have been the action of the Royal Malaysian Air Force, Are you really going to shoot down a commercial airline?
Well, if you knew it was a commercial airline,
Exactly.
then why did you then spend a week searching the South China Sea?
That's why the TUDM said, because realized that though it is a commercial, and we didn't know it was the MH370. And all that will come out in the inquiries anyway.
Yeah, but the point is that with the black box signal now maybe fading, that week which everyone spent looking in the South China Sea may now be quite important.
The Air France took 2 years to find a box. It's more than 30 days. So they found a black box after 2 years. So this battery life will not hold water with me when it comes to looking at it, and all these other speculation with regards to scrambling of aircrafts and military airplanes, and trying to apportion that to Malaysia's capability. I'll leave it for later to answer, but right now I think we have done well to be where we are right now.
Do you think we will ever fully know what happened on board that plane?
I hope so. I hope so. And at the end of the day, if we do not stray from the focus, we will find out, Jonah.
So you believe there will be answers in the end?
I know there will be answers. I know we will find the plane. But it's just a matter of when.
Malaysia's acting transport minister there. Now for more, I'm joined by Captain Desmond Ross, who's a former pilot and Asia Pacific Vice President of the International Aviation Security Management Association. He joins me now from Sydney. Now you heard that interview from the Malaysian transport minister saying the plane will be found. It's really just a matter of when. So do you think we're any closer to trying to find it now?
I'm very encouraged by the pings and the work that's being done at the moment. I think that they're narrowing a search area. I'm still a little bit uncertain that they're in the right spot, and I think Air Vice Marshal or Air Chief Marshal Angus Houston agrees that we have to be very, very cautious about all of this at the moment. Let's hope they're in the right spot and that we're going to find it.
So you're urging caution, but what do you think of the way the Malaysians handled the incident when, of course, the plane first disappeared from the radar?
I've watched the interview this morning with the Minister of Defence and Acting Transport Minister with your reporter. I'm a little disappointed from the beginning. I think that there could have been a much faster response to the missing aircraft. I fail to understand why the military did not liaise, or apparently did not liaise, with the civil controllers at the time. Any unidentified aircraft transiting a country's airspace, which is picked up by the military, has to be identified. It's that simple. The minister has already said they identified it as a civil aircraft. If that is true, if they did identify it as a civil aircraft, how did they identify it? Did they identify it by discussing it with the air traffic controller in the Kuala Lumpur Control Centre? If they did that, did the Kuala Lumpur air traffic controller not say, well, gee, we've just lost MH370, perhaps that's MH370, we need to identify it and find out if that's actually the aircraft missing.
So how do you then think they could have handled that situation better?
Well, it appears that there's been very little liaison between the military and the civil controllers on that night. Otherwise, surely somebody would have realized this is our missing aircraft. Let's go and look at it. Send up a Sukhoi to identify it. Make sure that it really is MH370. And if it is, then let's track it and see where it's going. We might not be in this position we're in today.
And what do you make of that slow response?
It's a difficult one. I've lived in that part of the world for some years, and I'm very conscious of the Southeast Asians, the Malaysians, the Indonesians. All of those are very conscious of losing face. They are very cautious, very polite people, but sometimes you have to be a little more aggressive. And maybe they were a little shy about asking for assistance in those first few days. Now we have 26 nations out there helping them. That could have happened on the second or third day of the operation had they gone with the terms of the Chicago Convention, which they've signed.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us there, Captain Desmond Ross there in Sydney.
Now, a powerful cyclone is closing in on Australia. Cyclone Ita has been gaining power all day and has already risen from a Category 3 to a Category 5 in the last day. We'll have a look at the path of this cyclone. You can see that the cyclone is just off the coast of the northeast of Australia. It's due to hit the coast of Queensland in a few hours' time and then move down the coast over the weekend. Well, officials have already been telling residents in the affected areas to prepare for the worst.
The big concerns that people need to be preparing themselves for are storm surge, okay, which means in low-lying areas, water much higher potentially than normal tides, potentially 1.5 metres higher than the highest tide you would normally ever see, 1.5 metres, and that could be all the way down the coast through Cooktown to places like Port Douglas. That's the worst case scenario.
Well, joining us live now on the phone is local disaster coordinator Ian Fell, who's speaking to me from the Cairns Disaster Coordination Centre. Ian, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. How are you telling people to prepare for the cyclone?
Thanks very much for the invitation. Yeah, at the moment, we've got definite community messages that we put out all the time in relation to community engagement. But our policy here is that we don't evacuate to our storm tide cyclone shelters for wind. We have a policy of self-evacuation to a higher place, friends and relatives. That's simply because we don't have the capacity to take care of the number of people that we may need to evacuate from a low-lying coastal area to a Cat 5 rated facility. So our preferred method is a lot of planning, and that's a big message from us, from the Cairns Regional Council and the local disaster management group, Cairns Region, is to get that message out, pre-planning, have your kits ready, and basically have a plan of what you're going to do if we put out media releases or there is a direction from police to leave a specific area because of the danger of a storm tide or storm surge.
But what should that pre-planning or that plan entail, Ian? How should people make their homes as safe as they can possibly be?
In relation to the pre-planning, that we have is a lot of community engagement, a lot of social media, but also a lot of information on our website, and a lot of public education sessions where we do like workshops in relation to school holidays, like it's on at the moment. There was a workshop scheduled in relation to showing the people the recommended items that you might have prepared in your evacuation kit. We have the periods of time. We have a recognised cyclone season between November and May, and in October we're heavily into a lot of engagements, a lot of information out there on how to prepare your kit, where to store it in a handy place. There's other information, of course, about sheltering in place. If you're not in a danger zone that we're imminent threat, then we talk about sheltering in place in a home that's built after 1982 with an appropriate building standard. Then those people are given instructions as well, which are on our website and other publications.
OK, Ian, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm very sorry, but Ian Fell from the Cairns Disaster Coordination Centre, many thanks for joining us on the programme and sharing your insights about what sort of pre-planning the people of Cairns need to do for the impact of this cyclone. Many thanks for joining us.
And you're watching Newsday on the BBC Live from Singapore and London. Still to come on the programme, we hear about Sydney's first ever Indigenous Fashion Week, an event that's set to become an annual fixture.
And if you ever wanted to run through the North Korean capital Pyongyang, now's your chance. Amateur runners are allowed to take part in the marathon for the first time.
Awesome. It's one of those really overused words. But there's genuinely no other way to describe, to comprehend this great cathedral as it leaves Earth. You watch amazed, 1 in a million, and you hear almost nothing. And then after 20 seconds, something really incredible happens. It hits you, this wall of sound. And you know your stomach actually turns to jelly. And that's from 3 miles away. An incredible sight, and any second now, here it comes, the great wave of sound. You can actually feel it inside you.
Your limit will pass that on, and it certainly looks like you're well on your way now.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore.
And I'm Alice Baxter here in London. The latest headlines. Oscar Pistorius is called selfish, reckless and a liar during a second day of cross-examination at his murder trial.
A plane searching for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 detects a possible new signal in the southern Indian Ocean.
Now, millions of Indians have been voting on the first big day of the general election. Polling was held in 11 states and officials say that voter turnout in all states was higher than in 2009.
That's right. One of the states that saw huge numbers at the ballot boxes was the southern state of Kerala, where turnout figures were recorded at 74%. Well, my colleague Yogita Limaya spent the day in Cochin, which is a major port city in the state of Kerala.
Almost 3/4 of the people here in the southern state of Kerala came out to cast their votes today. That's a large number, and it's more than the elections in 2009. At the polling booths, people told us there were a number of factors influencing who they choose, ranging from worries about the economy, price rise, women's security, and even up to basic infrastructure, better roads and sufficient water supply for their homes. Now, as far as the political scenario is concerned, Kerala has mostly been a contest between a coalition led by the Congress and another group that's led by the Communist Party of India, Marxist. The BJP, or the Bharatiya Janata Party, doesn't really have a presence here. They have been trying to make inroads. Their prime ministerial candidate Narendra Modi campaigned here, and they have fielded candidates in all of the 20 seats. But for people here, it's still mostly a choice between the two parties that have always been strong here.
Now, a review of the drug Tamiflu, which has been stockpiled around the world, has raised questions about its effectiveness. Tamiflu is used to prevent and treat flu, including bird flu, but researchers say that there is no good evidence to support some of the claims made for the drug. Well, Mark Lipsitch is the professor of epidemiology at the Harvard School of Public Health, and he joins me live now from Atlanta. Many thanks for joining me here on the programme. What do you make of that assertion by these researchers that there is, quote, no good evidence to say that Tamiflu does what it claims to do?
I think that's an overstatement of a very complicated situation. There are a range of kinds of evidence that are used by physicians and public health decision makers about whether to recommend the use of a drug in various situations. One of those types of evidence is the randomized controlled trial, which is a very important kind of evidence. And the Cochrane Group has decided that in this situation, a subset of randomized controlled trials that meet very stringent novel criteria are what they consider good evidence. But that's a not widely held view, I would say, in the public health community. And just today, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reiterated their recommendations for the use of oseltamivir or Tamiflu in appropriate situations. So I think there's a long history of debate about this, but there is quite a bit of evidence, just not of the standard that the Cochrane collaboration considers good.
Nonetheless, Professor, this battle over Tamiflu, it surely does raise the question, whatever side of the debate you fall on, over how open drug companies are with their information and the need for full transparency around all clinical trials.
Absolutely. I think that the basic principle that led to some of this debate is correct on the Cochrane's. I agree with the Cochrane Group that there should be much more openness, and indeed there is more openness in modern clinical trials than there was a few years ago. I think there could be even more openness, and I'm absolutely supportive of that, as are most of the people I work with. I think the question is whether they have confounded the principle of data openness with the use of this as a kind of example case to try to make that point by making what I consider inflammatory statements about misallocation of public resources and bad decisions by public health authorities.
Professor Mark Lipsitch from the Harvard School of Public Health, many thanks for joining us here on the programme.
Now, Australia's first Indigenous Fashion Week is taking place in Sydney. It's set to become an annual fixture and will feature a range of traditional and contemporary designs from emerging and established designers. The face of the event is Australia's first Indigenous model, Samantha Harris, and she's been speaking to BBC World News about her rocky road to success.
It's kind of weird because I was such a shy girl. You know, I didn't talk too much to people. But when I was on the catwalk and doing little beauty pageants, I really enjoyed it and I loved all the attention. Maybe 6 or 7, I remember sticking a school photo in a magazine, going, "Look, Mum, I'm in a magazine." About 4, I used to do beauty pageants, and because I'm the only daughter, Mum would come along. It was mother-daughter time. I'd always make the finals in the beauty pageant, which I was really excited about and really happy about, but I would never win. It always seems to be the girls that had, you know, the blue eyes, the blonde hair and things like that. When I was nearly 13, I entered a competition, Got From Model Search. They'd pick 6 girls out of the whole country to be the finalists. I didn't win the competition, but, you know, I got signed with my agent.